issue about clarifying the duties of the rec board that I had proposed. The only input I've had are from Park and Rec members. The two questions they had is they were concerned about the word advisory, although in discussions with Mr. Sturgis, I think that concern probably isn't really warranted, since in the piece of legislation proposed, it clearly sets forth the powers and duties of the rec board, so that's far more than it has been in the past. One question was whether or not there should still be two appointees from the school board. I think in the thought process in the past is that the schools would have a more active involvement with the park system, and they have a minimal activity with the park system, and I'm not sure that the two appointees from the school board is necessarily a continuing, should be part of legislation, but I'm open to suggestions for all of this. I just know, I know that Councilwoman Hampton had questioned the need for this. And all I can say is in my 5.5 years on council this go around, it has always seemed that the actions of the rec board were being questioned by various members of the community. They were wondering about what their own authority was, and the rumor mill regarding how much influence any administration had on the rec board and the rec department director was rampant. And I think it still continues to today. I appreciate the mayor's thoughts on her concerns about it and to give people time, but I think part of that was taken care of by qualifications of the rec department head, that certainly the qualifications, if we appoint someone that meets those qualifications, they should be very equipped to handle the day-to-day operations of our park. And the mayor shouldn't have to worry about that, shouldn't be getting phone calls, and I frankly think that if the chair would be given that comfort level, or the director would be given that comfort level, that would be happening today. But we could always have the administration involvement in the selection process as well, with the ultimate decision still being the city council. I absolutely 100% believe that the ultimate decision on the Parks and Rec department head should lie with this city council. If politics haven't been used in the past, it certainly was thought to be used in the past. And I think that the provisions set forth in the proposed legislation regarding the discharge of that particular person is also warranted, so that they have a right to come forward. But again, I haven't heard anything from any city council people regarding their thoughts on this, other than what members of my committee have shared with me in the past. I mean, Ed?
Two quick comments as I continue to process all of this. The first one, as far as the school board members or school board appointing two members to the committee board, that's state statute that I believe brought that into play when you read the state code. So that's why I think I would be still in favor of remaining. I know some people have said that, well, now Massillon's grown over the years, and we have like a Tussall school district, Perry school district, Jackson school. And do those school districts also get to play a part? I would say no, because I don't, I could be wrong, but I can't recall if we have a park in any of the school districts. I believe all of our parks probably still remain within the Massillon school district. Your map, I can't say for sure, but I'm fairly certain. So I don't know if those schools districts would have any skin in the game. That question would come back up. And then the one thing I really mull over is the idea that the council, it would be incapable of appointing, or wouldn't be as efficient to appoint a parks director to oversee it. I think we could, and I think it's been proven to be done. If you look at the city manager style of government, that is essentially a city council picking an administrator to run the entire city. And that is a proven system that has worked time and time again. It's been around since the 1920s in southern Ohio. It's a huge form of government in the southern United States and western United States. And a lot of people use it, and they're effective. So we could do the same thing with parks. It's just a matter of whether or not we want to. And I'm not so sure I sit on one side or the other. I just want to make sure that we're educating ourselves that what is being proposed is very closely aligned with other systems that have been proven time and time again throughout the United States to be effective in differing systems. Just something to think about as we move forward.
I just wanted to.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification as far as if council was to be the final decision maker, who actually does the parks director answer to? Like if any reprimands or, you understand, like if we were to choose that particular person and something goes wrong, they come back to us to determine to get rid of them, or how does that work? I guess that's, more or less where I need clarification at.
Well, the rec board would still have that overseeing function,
Okay,
but the ultimate decision would be coming to the city
okay.
council. And I don't think that we'd ever be actively necessarily involved in that decision process in terms of selection.
Okay,
Other than if, I think we should be involved in if we care to. For instance, the chairman and certainly the members of the committee should be invited to the meetings themselves. And I think the administration should always be invited to those meetings, because the administration certainly is going, whatever it is going to take certain pride in the parks. But I think ultimately a decision body, by this body, because this is a separate fund being collected from our citizens, is critical at some point, because and we ultimately have the financial say on everything that goes through anyway, so why wouldn't we have it on that? I mean, that's just my thought. And I'm not involved in all the politics. I've been unassociated with any group, so I don't know anything that happens all the time. I hear rumors. I don't like the rumors I hear. I don't like what gets back to me from both administrations previously, and I just think that our park should not have any of that in it. So, and as I've said in the past, I like Bob Strong, but I never thought he was qualified for that job. So I don't have any idea how he got, just liking him is a different issue than whether someone is qualified to do the job. Andrea?
I've been mulling this over, and I guess I understand what Ed's saying by the city manager type of government, and I'm assuming you're talking, that's more of a charter type of government, which we don't have, but obviously is proven, and I don't know if the statutory cities are dying breed or what necessarily, but I guess when I look at our role on city council, I look at it as obviously not only creating the laws of the city as may be needed, but controlling the purse strings, which we already have that authority to do with the Parks and Rec. Like I said, I've given this a lot of thought, and I don't know as a council member if I necessarily want to start to get involved in picking personnel and directors. I know the Parks Department is a little bit different in that they have their own funding source through that tax revenue. But like I said, I don't know if council necessarily should be involved in that process, that end process. I do think there should be some sort of checks, and I've said before, as much time and effort and energy and goodwill that the Parks and Rec Board put in, and as other people have said, they're not elected. So I do think we need an accountability there for the people. I don't know, my feeling is more of perhaps maybe whether it's the administration, the mayor picking the person, and then the Parks Board having the ultimate say. I don't know, I guess I just disagree with you a little bit, Larry, as to whether or not city council has the ultimate say on who the director is. I mean, I think it needs to be clearly defined, but that's my feeling. And I think our role in the budgetary process is there, and I think we shouldn't give that up, obviously. I don't think that's on the table being discussed, but I don't know, I've been thinking about it, and that's where I'm sort of falling.
Nancy?
I've kind of been on the outside looking in for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and we keep talking about the private funding of the park department, but the wastewater treatment department also has their private funding, because they get their funding through our sewer money that we pay for sewer and sewer, and that goes into a special fund that cannot be touched by the general fund situation. So we have no control over who the director or who the mayor chooses as the director of the wastewater treatment department. So I'm not sure why we should have any control over who the park department is. And the more that I think about this, and the more that I've gone to park and rec board meetings, I'm not sure if we have the right people on the board. A lot of times they're there for the right purpose, and I'm really starting to lean towards maybe that the administration should take over the department.
Well, obviously, I'm not wedded to any of these. I have my own thoughts on it, but I'm not a dictator. I'm not someone that muscles anything. I listen to all the things. At the very least, I think we need to organize the process and put credentialing down for the director. And we need to have some sort of public forum for when that director is discharged to come forward and at least speak their piece. For all the openness that we have had suggested was going on, I saw no openness with the Strawn issue. I mean, as far as I'm aware, no one wanted him appointed, and he just appeared in Massillon, Ohio, and was given the job. I mean, and then he was discharged without any say. I mean,
I'm sorry, Rick. I don't understand that this discussion has anything to do with the director. I thought the ordinance was going to refer to who's in charge, the administration or the park department.
You can change that piece of ordinance very easily by taking out with the final vote coming to city council by saying final choice by the administration, the mayor. I mean, that's all you need to change in that legislation. But it still sets forth the framework about what their role is, what they can be expected to try to accomplish on their own, and then what clarity is given to the citizens about who's going to be running what is, frankly, almost a $6 million business. And I appreciate your thoughts on the wastewater treatment plant. I understand as well, but the wastewater treatment plant, in order to be appointed in that position, you have to meet certain qualifications. You have to have a certain licensing to do it. Right now, our rec department head did not need that. And I'm not sure that my suggestion or the requirements are so stringent that perhaps you want to relax some of those. But that would take away the mayor's concern about overseeing that department head, because if you appoint someone with the qualifications that have been set forth in the legislation, that person should know how to run a Parks and Recs department, and certainly should know how better to run it than a mayor or a safety service director coming from the various backgrounds that they came from.
Well, I think, and I don't know enough, I guess, about directors of Parks and Recreation Department to know if the qualifications you have in here are the standard, the norm, or too stringent. To me, they seemed a little, setting the standard high, which I think we need for our city, but again, like I said, I don't know if they are the norm or not. Even having someone who not only meets but perhaps exceeds these qualifications, I still think you need to have not someone day-to-day holding their hand, but I still think we need someone overseeing them, because if you're seeking that transparency, if unfortunately the job performance takes a turn and, termination needs to happen again, I mean, there has to be someone there overseeing that. And again, not to talk disparaging of the Parks and Rec Department, but they aren't there every day. We're not there every day. So if we're looking for that transparency of exactly what's happening that would maybe warrant a termination, I think we need that oversight. And I don't know if the mayor would like to comment on that. Like I said, I don't think we need someone holding hands, because if they are as qualified as we're expecting them to be, they should be able to be self-sufficient. But I still think we need some sort of oversight to facilitate that transparency if, unfortunately, we end up in the same situation as we did last year.
I would like to comment on a couple of things that Larry had said this evening, and that is the first, Mr. Ken Kaminsky did a great job, but he decided to go, I believe it was Medina, is where he went to. And, after he resigned, the Parks Department sent us a letter saying that they wanted Mr. Strong put in as the director. And we were very transparent. We sent them a letter back, and we said, put him in as interim for now, and make sure this is who you want. And they sent us a letter back a couple weeks later, a week or two or three, saying, this is who we want. This is him. This is our guy. So we put him in place. And I will share with you, that's why we're being very cautious. Doug has done an excellent job, but we have been very cautious over this next interim director because of that. Because we hurried up and we rushed and we put someone in place that later failed. And we don't want that to happen again. And so we have been very cautious. I believe the term was used, nannying. That's not, we're just trying to make sure Doug is successful. And that's all we're doing. And I do believe that you have to have somebody that is on being able to help with issues. Because unfortunately, I do get calls. And we do try to give them right over to the department director. But at times, as you know, when you take calls, some people are not very happy when they're not talking to the mayor. They want to talk directly to the mayor. They don't want the director. So I calm them down, talk through things, and I'll say, the director will get right back with you with a resolution. And so there are times that I need to be helpful. And I really want my directors to take those calls, but there are times that I need to take them myself. So I think that, and I really would like to end with that, I have zero issue if you want to also approve the Parks Director. That takes the politics completely out. And I will share with you that you cannot hire your friends. And the last session of interviews for the Parks and Rec Director, the Parks Board, and I may have shared this with you a couple weeks ago, only would rate one candidate, several members of our park board. And that candidate was Doug Mills. Now, somebody traveled from Florida, somebody traveled from Michigan. How fair is that to those applicants? We've got to create a fair process. And when you're a volunteer board, what do you have to risk if you're not creating a fair process? When we're elected officials, we have a lot to risk to create a fair process. And so that is what I expect, is that it's a fair process. And when the mayor and my team is involved, we can guarantee that. And we have been truly transparent on this issue. And the Park and Rec Board brought us a recommendation to remove Mr. Strong, and we supported the recommendation and we removed him. So if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
I think the main reason you need some qualifications there is that Mr. Strong wouldn't have met the qualifications already set up for the three positions below. I mean, we have qualifications for the park superintendent, the golf course superintendent, and for the recreation. So, I mean, that's the main reason I suggested that.
And like I said, I completely agree. I just don't know if these standards are the norm, or, like I said, if they're above the norm, but I definitely agree that we need some standards.
My only concern about the standards I put in there is that I do not believe that Mr. Nist would meet those standards. And I think Mr. Nist would be and is a fine director of our department. And I see no reason why he continues to be interim. But I don't think he'd meet those qualifications, so I'm open to suggestions on changing those, because I don't want to foreclose a life, someone who grew up in Massillon, whose family grew here, who knows the parks, who knows the system, and has been involved in it before on levels, but he doesn't meet the qualifications I unfortunately put in there. I didn't know that at the time.
Moving forward in this conversation, we might want to be very careful when we name particular people. We don't want to make qualifications based off of anyone that we may like to see in a position. If we deem as a council that certain qualifications are necessary, and if a particular person doesn't qualify, then that's unfortunate, but it's qualifications we deem necessary. I think you also get around with that by saying, putting a line in there that says, or any combination of characteristics deemed to equal to. So that way if you have someone that's got 20 years of experience but never happened to be the manager, they could still be deemed equal to or whatever. Throw that line in there, I think we clear it up.
Okay. That's kind of suggestions I'm looking for. Just like, I understand the mayor's point about everyone sees the mayor as being the big chief over the whole pot that runs the city of Massillon. I understand that. But having said that, I appreciate the comment that I think she said was, give them, let them select, she approves it, and then brings it to us for final approval. I don't think much politics will be played in that. It's pretty hard, in my opinion, to play politics with 9 individuals on this council. I think if that person's brought, it's a good person, it's going to be voted on and approved like virtually most of the legislation that comes before us is. So I like those suggestions. I like those being brought forth, and I'd like to see them put out. But if you're asking me, in my experience over the 5.5 years, I mean, it's just amazing what goes on and they need that kind of selection. And don't forget, 3 of the people are the mayor's appointees as it is, so the mayor, he or she just has some control. They weren't hers, I understand that. But I mean, the mayor that's been appointed has some control already.
That brings in another interesting point.
You may want to ask Perry about your question, whether we could remove the 2. Selections by the Board of Education.
Oh, I don't want to remove them at all.
Oh, okay.
My question might still go to Perry, but is it right now, if the mayor looks at the 3 mayor appointees, and if she looks at them and deems them not suitable for service, does she have the authority to remove them and appoint someone else? Or once they appointed, they're stuck for the length of their term?
There's really no provisions in what we have for removing somebody.
I think that's just as important. If you're going to give this board any kind of authority, but then give them no way for us to yank them out, that's fair. I think that's more dangerous. I think if we appoint someone and then they prove themselves to be hidden agenda or incapable of actually holding the tasks, the mayor needs the ability to say, you know what, no, you got to go, we need to replace you.
What about in terms of the 2 that are appointed from the school board? Is there any authority to, if we don't like, to remove them as well?
No, same problem.
So nothing's ever been
Don't
written
reappoint them.
in? Yeah, but, so you're stuck.
I don't know of any, it's a volunteer unpaid position. There's no provisions written about removing anybody from anything, nor have I ever seen in this unique scenario. Not very many cities have this type of setup, but there's nothing written in there about removing, and I honestly don't know of any way to do it absent absolute, criminal conduct. And I don't even know, if you're on a board and you go commit some other crime, does that mean we should be able to remove you? Doesn't have anything to do with being, you know what I mean? I mean, there's nothing written, so I don't know of any way.
That was sort of where I was going to head. I mean, I see what you're getting at, Ed, but I almost think that may be a slippery slope. I mean, or just thinking out loud, would it be the mayor saying, you know, I don't think your conduct, or you mentioned hidden agendas. I guess, to me, I think that may be hard to quantify unless we attach, you get charged and convicted with a criminal offense, you know, that's not representing our city well. You know, I think that it may just be hard to say, this person is not voting in line, so, you know, and granted, you know, that I would hope that it would need so many votes of council, but I don't know. I just think that may be a slippery slope if a volunteer board member isn't acting the way they should, that, you know, all of a sudden they're removed. But, like I said, unless you can put an actual quantifying criteria on it, you know, getting convicted of a crime of moral turpitude, like I said, that it doesn't represent our city well, maybe, but otherwise I think that may be a slippery slope for this type of position.
Response, I guess.
I understand, and I would agree that, I guess I should state that if we were to pass this legislation in which authority would pass to the board over the oversight with the council and the mayor having appointees, we need to look at that, because now we have a board that very much so has a lot of control over varying aspects of the parks. And I don't want some kind of an appointee to go there and prove for some quantifiable way incapable of holding it. And we need to have some control measures.
Well, ultimately, we always have control, because we control the budget. Now, the problem with that control is that very rarely is it ever exercised. I mean, I don't know when the last time, I haven't sat on this council in which you actually used the budget to deal with an issue that was, that we saw as a problem. But that's why they have to bring us increase in the rates for the golf course, you know. That's why they'd have to bring us increases for the rates for the rec center. I mean, we ultimately do have that control. The problem is it's so far down the food chain, and we all are so busy with other things, I don't think it would ever be a logical place to exercise it in this body that way. And it would look more like a political maneuver than ever, I think, would happen. So I'm just trying to set forth some sort of structure so they know, we know, the administration knows, and the public knows what's going on. Mr. Manson?
Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Sturgis a question about it. You commented on the procedure we're using, that it's kind of unique. It's not, it's a little different than a lot of the way a lot of other places are handling their parks.
Very few have an income tax that was voted on and specifically dedicated for maintaining the park and rec system. There's not that, we might have been the first, that's what I was referring to. There's hundreds of them set up under this statute, but some, that's the versions that I sent to Mr. Slagle of things I was trying to pick, see what other people did with regard to appointing the director and who he reports to, and same issue we've been talking about since we created this monstrosity.
Okay, the reason I asked, I just
For lack of a better word.
Yeah, I'm looking at our ordinance, and I have to admit I never looked at the Ohio Revised Code before, but I've been reading it now. And what they have in there, it seems very simple and logical to me. Look at this. And I brought this up with earlier discussions with Mr. Slagle, that maybe this should be run by a board rather than, by the mayor or whatever. So I was thinking about this in my own mind, but then after reading the Ohio Revised Code, it makes it all pretty simple. It looks to me like maybe we confused this issue. Maybe when we set this up, whoever helped set it up thought they were giving away authority that should be in the mayor's hands or something. But this, I'm looking at it as this may be a better way to operate the parks. I'm the opinion, you go hire somebody, you go out and try to find somebody that's qualified and they can do the job, and you hire them and they do the job until they prove they can't do it anymore, or you just get tired of the way they're doing it or whatever. And I kind of like what I'm reading. starting to think on this myself. The board thing just came into my mind without reading it. Now that I read it on more and more, I'm leaning that direction. Something similar to the Ohio Revised Code, and I think that's what you have in the proposed ordinance you have there. It covers a lot of that.
Mr. Chubman?
Thank you. I like the qualifications for director that you have in there. The problem that I have with having, actually, like, well, I've been thinking about this a lot. The problem with having our board, Parks and Rec board, involved in looking at someone's qualifications and making a decision is the people appointed to the board, there's no requirement for them to have any kind of, there are no requirements they have to meet to be appointed. So you're asking, or you're not, but we would be asking them to appoint somebody that, I'm not sure if they're qualified to make the judgment. So your idea may be coming back, whether it's either to the administration or the council for a final decision, I think is important. You said it before about elected officials versus appointed officials. And I think somebody mentioned hidden agendas on the park board and things like that. Ultimately, I think it does have to be an elected official somewhere that has the ultimate say. That's just my 2 cents. And then, one other thing, as long as I'm talking, when you talk about the qualifications that you put down there, which I like, by the way, but then you have to take a look at what do you have to pay? What's your compensation package for somebody at that level have to look like? And would that be totally out of line with the rest of the people that are getting compensated for having different departments within the city? Those are pretty tough guidelines, and I think we should have them. But then you're looking at what, what's the pay structure for that? Those are just the things that I'm, thinking.
Well, and I think that's, again, one thing I was concerned about, the 10 years and already being in charge. And I think that does create an issue about the pay structure of that particular department. Because you might have a difficult time getting someone willing to do it for what we offer here without increasing their pay. But I think when we set the committee that worked together through the fall and the spring and gave the recommendations to the mayor's office about what needed to be done, particularly with the legends, but frankly with all, the main problem we saw was that there are not many of our current director, whether any of them, in the past 3 years have been asked to do way more than what the structure said they should be doing, because there are so many unfilled positions below them. And if you could, and part of the problem with the dysfunctioning or malfunctioning, because I don't think it's a dysfunctional park system, but there are some malfunctioning parts of our park and recreation system that needs to be addressed. But part of that's created by the fact that there's so many holes in the various management structure. And anybody that knows that in good management, you need those positions filled. Because frankly, our director may on occasion have to take phone calls from citizens, but those could be handled if they're about the golf course by the golf superintendent position that's not filled, or by the recreation department head, and I don't think that position is filled, or by the park superintendent, which is not filled either, because our park superintendent is our interim overall director. So we really have, that really has to be addressed. And until we get some stability in this department, it's been unstable for a long time. And I know that Mr. Kaminsky, part of the reason he left was he felt that there was no hope for him with the change of administrations. And part of that is unfortunately brought about by the rumor mill in the city of Massillon about who's tied into who plays cards, who controls whom. And half of these rumors are totally untrue, but they get so blown out of proportion they become the truth. And Kaminsky was an excellent director. Now, part of his pay package I would have had some difficulty with. but that's what he was hired with, and that's what he expected when he was, here. And you can't blame an employee for taking a pay package that was negotiated and given to him. I mean, that's what was given to him. But we really need to fix some of these problems. I think this legislation will fix some of them. You can fine tune it any way you want. I have no great desire to push this through even in 3 readings. I can, we can amend, I can move it on, because this is not something that we should be jumping through hoops to get passed as soon as possible. But I think it's something that this council has to address, and if not this one, the next council, because it has definitely been a problem for a long, long time. When we get over that hurdle, then things will operate better, in my opinion. I'm not sure I'll see the end of this legislation, because as you know, I'll be gone by December at the latest. Any other suggestions? All right, well, I'll take and tweak what you've been given to me, and we might come off. Thank you. Second reading only, nothing else is going to happen.